Hello, my friends. Welcome back to Steady English Stories. Close your eyes for a moment, my friend. Picture this. It is the year 1930. You are standing on a dock in Montevideo, a city in a small country called Uruguay. The air smells like salt water. A large ship is arriving from far across the ocean. On this ship are men from France, from Belgium, from Romania. They have traveled for 2 weeks across a huge, cold ocean just to play a game. Why would anyone do this? Why would grown men leave their homes, their families, and their jobs, and travel for 2 weeks just to kick a ball? My friend, what you are picturing is the birth of something that today, almost 100 years later, over 1 billion people watch on their televisions. It is the story of the FIFA World Cup. And before we begin, I want to say, if stories like this one help you learn English, please subscribe to Steady English Stories. It costs you nothing, and it helps our little community of learners grow. Now, let us go back to the beginning. Our story starts with one man. His name was Jules Rimet. Jules was French. He loved football with all his heart. But in the 1920s, football had a problem. The biggest sports event in the world was the Olympic Games, and in the Olympics, football was only a small part of a much bigger show. Jules Rimet had a dream. What if football could have its own tournament? A tournament, my friend. That word simply means a competition with many games and many teams just for football. A tournament for the whole world. Many people did not believe in this dream. They were skeptical. Skeptical means they did not think something would work. Europe was far from South America. Ships took weeks to cross the ocean. Telephones were rare. How could countries from different continents agree on rules? How could they agree on a place to play? How could they even find the money? But Jules Rimet did not stop dreaming. He was a quiet man, not a loud one. He was patient. For years, he traveled. He talked. He wrote letters. Slowly, country by country, he built support for his idea. And in 1929, something remarkable happened. FIFA, the organization that controls world football, chose a country to host the very first World Cup. That country was Uruguay. Now, my friend, you might ask, why Uruguay? It was a small country. It was far from Europe, where most of football's power lived. But Uruguay had 2 strong reasons on its side. First, its football team had just 1 goal. Second, 1930 was a special year for Uruguay. 100 years since the country had won its independence. The Uruguayan government said, "We will build a brand new stadium, and we will pay for every visiting team's hotel and travel." 4 teams struggling with money during hard economic times. This was a very generous offer. Still, the decision caused real anger in Europe. Many European teams did not want to make the long, expensive voyage. A voyage is a long journey, usually by sea, across the Atlantic Ocean. In the end, only 4 European teams agreed to go: France, Belgium, Romania, and Yugoslavia. The rest stayed home. Can you imagine, my friend, being one of those 4 brave teams, stepping onto a ship, not knowing exactly what waited for you on the other side of the world? On July 13th, 1930, in the brand new Estadio Centenario in Montevideo, the first ever World Cup match began. France played against Mexico. The whistle blew. The ball moved, and history, quietly, without any fireworks or global television cameras, began to happen. 13 teams competed that summer. There was no long qualification process like today, where nations spend years trying to earn a place. Teams were simply invited. The final match came down to two neighboring rivals, Uruguay and Argentina. Imagine the tension in that stadium, my friend. Two countries sharing a border, sharing a language, sharing decades of friendly competition, now facing each other for the very first World Cup trophy. Uruguay won. 4-2. The home crowd celebrated long into the night. Jules Rimet's impossible dream, his tournament for the whole world, had worked. But my friend, a beautiful beginning does not always mean a smooth journey ahead. This small, hopeful tournament was about to face forces far bigger than football itself, forces that would silence the World Cup completely. Not once, but twice. What do you think could possibly be powerful enough to stop the whole world from playing? War, my friend, that is the answer. World War II, the largest and most terrible conflict humanity has ever known, would soon stop nearly everything in the world, including football. But before that darkness arrived, the World Cup grew. In 1934, the tournament moved to Italy. This time, 32 nations tried to qualify, though only 16 made it to the final tournament. Italy won on their home soil, in front of a proud, roaring crowd. 4 years later, in 1938, Italy won again, this time in France. Twice in a row, my friend. 2 victories, back to back. The dream that Jules Rimet had carried in his heart was no longer a small experiment. It was becoming something the whole world watched, and then everything stopped. In 1939, war broke out across Europe. Cities burned, millions of people suffered and died. Football, along with almost every ordinary part of daily life, became impossible. The World Cups planned for 1942 and 1946 were simply cancelled. There is a quiet, painful detail here that I want to share with you. Jules Rimet, the man who started it all, personally hid the World Cup trophy, a solid gold cup, inside a shoebox, under his bed, to protect it from soldiers who might steal it or melt it down. Think about that. One man, alone in his home, protecting a golden trophy with nothing but a simple shoebox, while the whole world burned around him. Isn't it remarkable what people choose to protect, even in the darkest times? When the war finally ended in 1945, the world was exhausted. Millions were dead. Cities lay in ruins. Ruins means the broken remains of buildings that have been destroyed. But slowly, carefully, life began again. And in 1950, the World Cup returned, hosted in Brazil. This tournament gave us one of the most painful moments in football history, an event Brazilians still call the Maracanazo. The word combines Maracana, the name of the enormous new stadium built in Rio de Janeiro, with a suffix that basically means the great shock or the great blow. Brazil, the host nation, only needed a draw in their final match against Uruguay to win the championship. A draw simply means neither team wins. The score stays even. Nearly 200,000 fans filled the stadium, certain of victory. Newspapers had already printed headlines celebrating Brazil as champions before the final whistle even blew. But Uruguay won, 2-1. The stadium fell into complete silence. Not shouting, not crying out loud, just silence, heavy and vast, from 200,000 people at once. Some Brazilian fans reportedly died of heart attacks from the shock. For decades afterward, Brazilian parents would use this story to teach their children a hard lesson. Nothing in life is guaranteed, no matter how certain it seems. My friend, have you ever felt so sure of something good happening, only to watch it slip away in a single moment? From this point forward, the World Cup's rise became unstoppable. Television arrived, and matches could now be broadcast into homes across entire continents. In 1958, a 17-year-old boy from Brazil, playing in his very first World Cup, announced himself to the world. His name was Pelé. He would go on to become perhaps the greatest player the sport has ever produced, eventually winning 3 World Cups in his career, a record that stands to this day. Through the 1960s and 1970s, the tournament kept expanding. More countries competed, more cameras captured the action, more money began flowing into the sport. And this is where our story reaches its complication, my friend, because success, real success, often carries a hidden cost. As the World Cup grew larger and richer, so did FIFA, the organization controlling it. Football was no longer just a game played for love and national pride. It was becoming a massive business worth billions of dollars. Television rights, sponsorship deals, ticket sales, enormous sums of money began moving through FIFA's hands. And where there is enormous money, my friend, there is often enormous temptation. Over the following decades, FIFA's reputation would slowly become tangled in serious accusations of corruption. Corruption means the dishonest or illegal use of power, often for personal financial gain. Officials were accused of accepting bribes to decide which countries would host future tournaments. A bribe is money secretly given to someone to influence their decision unfairly. Investigations, arrests, and public scandals would eventually reach the very top of the organization that Jules Rimet had built with nothing but a hopeful vision and patient letters written decades before the World Cup had climbed to the very peak of global fame. But at that peak, hidden underneath the celebration and the golden trophy, something troubling had taken root. What do you think happens when something built purely out of love slowly becomes controlled by money and power instead? Part 3. The answer, my friend, came in the year 2015, on a quiet morning in Zurich, Switzerland, where FIFA has its headquarters. Police officers walked into a hotel and arrested several of the organization's top officials. The world watched in shock as the story spread. Investigators uncovered a wide, tangled web. A web here simply means a complicated, connected system of secret payments and unfair decisions stretching back many years. Some officials went to prison. Others resigned in disgrace. It was a difficult, embarrassing chapter for an organization built on Jules Rimet's simple, hopeful dream. But here is something beautiful, my friend, something I want you to really notice. Through all of this, through war, through scandal, through corruption, at the very top, the World Cup itself never stopped bringing people together. On the ground, in the stadiums, none of the boardroom troubles mattered. Fans from Nigeria and fans from Argentina still stood side by side, singing songs neither of them fully understood, united only by their love of the same game. Children in small villages with no running water still gathered around a single television to watch their heroes play. Somehow, The pure joy at the heart of the tournament survived every storm above it. The tournament kept growing. From 13 teams in 1930, it grew to 32 teams by the 1990s, and soon, my friend, it will grow even further to 48 teams, reflecting a wider, more inclusive vision of who gets to dream of lifting that golden trophy. Jules Rimet died in 1956, never knowing just how enormous his small idea would eventually become. He was not a perfect man, and the organization he founded was not always a perfect organization. But he gave the world something rare, a shared moment, once every 4 years, when a Brazilian grandmother, a French teenager, and an Argentine factory worker might all feel the exact same joy, or the exact same heartbreak, at the exact same instant. So, my friend, what is the lesson hidden inside this long, remarkable story? I think it is this: great things rarely begin as great things. They begin small, often doubted, often disbelieved. Jules Rimet was just one quiet man with letters and patience. Uruguay was just one small country willing to take a risk. And yet patience, plus a genuine love for something, built one of the most powerful shared experiences in human history. This is exactly like your own English learning journey, my friend. Right now, today, your English might feel small. It might feel new, uncertain, even a little doubted by yourself. But remember Jules Rimet. Remember how his small, patient dream eventually reached over 1 billion people. Your English does not need to be perfect today. It simply needs you to keep showing up, sentence by sentence, story by story, the same patient way he built his tournament, letter by letter, country by country. If this story helped you today, please give this video a like and subscribe to Steady English Stories so you never miss our next journey together. And I would love to know which moment in football history would you like to hear next. Tell me in the comments below. Until next time, my friends, keep learning,